Picture a world where planes bring destruction, changing history with each bomb. From the big Blitz in London to the huge atomic bombs in Hiroshima, airplanes have caused huge changes. These 10 big attacks not only changed history, but also left lasting scars. But what impact do you think these incidents left? Number 1. Operation Mole Cricket 19. As the sun rose over Lebanon on June 9, 1982, there was a feeling of excitement and nervousness in the air. The Israeli Air Force was getting ready for a big mission. Imagine planes flying all over, ready to create chaos. Commander Irvi was leading the mission, staying calm even though everyone was tense. He waited for the perfect moment to strike, and that moment, exactly 2 p.m. It was a decision that would be remembered forever. Meanwhile, a Syrian radar on Jebel Baruch was watching closely, but nothing could stop what was about to happen. Finally, at 1:30 p.m., the order was given. Israeli jets roared into action, splitting the air as they went. The first wave, packed with F-15s and F-16s, hit their targets dead on. And there, lurking in the background, was a second wave, ready to pounce when the time was right. Equipped with super advanced gadgets, the Israeli Air Force, IAF, dove into a futuristic showdown, messing up enemy radars and keeping a constant link from Tel Aviv. But as Israeli pilots zoomed into action, they knew they were up against tough opponents in the Syrian air defenses. Syrian fighter jets hurried to protect their turf, their pilots clueless about the tricks Israeli forces played. Little did they know, tiny pilotless planes wandered above, tricking the Syrian anti-aircraft batteries into showing themselves, like unsuspecting prey to a hunter. During the chaos, Israeli jets struck with deadly accuracy, firing missiles that sliced through the Syrian defenses effortlessly. The sky turned into a fiery mess as the IAF kept up their attack with unstoppable determination. But the Syrians fought back fiercely, trying everything to push back the invaders. However, their efforts were hampered as their communication with the ground was jammed, leaving them stranded. As the battle carried on, the Israelis kept their upper hand, exploiting every weakness in the Syrian defenses. Pilotless planes watched over enemy airfields, giving vital info to Israeli planes, while jamming tech left Syrian pilots flying blind into danger. With each moment passing, casualties mounted on both sides. Despite the heavy fighting, Commander Irvi knew when to call it quits. With the mission done and night falling, he made the tough call to retreat, leaving the Syrians to deal with their losses. But even as the smoke cleared, doubts lingered. Had the Israelis truly achieved their goal, or was there more to the conflict than met the eye? Number 2. Attack on Pearl Harbor. In the early morning of December 7, 1941, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii was peaceful, not suspecting the trouble brewing. When the sun began to rise, it gave an odd light to the harbor, where the United States was resting, unaware. But under the water, the Japanese Navy Air Service was getting ready for a big attack that would change history. The United States and Japan had been arguing for months, both wanting to be the boss in the Pacific Ocean. Talks didn't work, and Japan decided to attack. They called it Operation Al, and it was part of a bigger plan called Operation Z. The surprise attack caught the Americans sleeping, throwing them into war suddenly. The Japanese used 6 aircraft carriers packed with planes to hit Pearl Harbor. 353 planes came in 2 waves, aiming to destroy the American ships and make it easier for Japan to take control. In just a few hours, the peaceful harbor turned into chaos, with the sounds of planes and explosions. The first wave of attackers caused chaos. Bombers flew low, hitting their targets precisely. American ships, once powerful symbols, were now burning and sinking from torpedoes and bombs. The surprise attack gave the Japanese a big advantage, leaving the Americans scrambling to fight back. After the first attack, another one swiftly came, hitting hard those who were defending. The American planes tried their best, but they were no match for the powerful Japanese attackers. Buildings where planes were kept burst into flames, and the runways became useless, all part of the plan to destroy the enemy completely. When the smoke cleared and the sounds of fighting faded away, Pearl Harbor was left in ruins, showing how brutal modern wars can be. The damage was immense. More than 2,400 Americans died, and over 1,000 were injured. Ships burned in the harbor, becoming graveyards for the fallen soldiers. Leaders made decisions that changed history. Japan's attack woke up a strong opponent, and the United States quickly got ready for war. Soon, declarations of war spread worldwide, pulling many countries into a conflict that would spread like wildfire. When the chaos settled, people were horrified by Japan's bold attack. President Roosevelt's words marked December 7, 1941, as a day of shame. This was the start of a war like no other, with the effects of Pearl Harbor felt for years to come. Number 3. Air Battle of El Mansura. It was October 14, 1972, a tense day at Mansura Air Base. The Egyptians were moving closer along the Suez Canal, and the Israelis sensed trouble. At 3 p.m., everything seemed strangely quiet. Then at 3:15, chaos erupted. 20 enemy planes appeared over Port Said, ready to attack. Air Marshal Hosni Mubarak commanded 16 MiG-21s to take off, but there was a surprise. They were told to defend rather than attack. Pilots were confused as they waited in the sky. The enemy planes stayed out of reach and eventually retreated, leaving the MiGs eager for action. But the real challenge was yet to come. Around 3:30, a warning came. A swarm of 60 enemy planes was approaching fast from all sides. Mubarak ordered his team to intercept them. The sky turned into a battlefield as Egyptian and Israeli planes clashed. But the fight wasn't over. At 3:38, another wave of enemy planes arrived unexpectedly. More MiGs scrambled to join the battle, trying to hold the line. Amidst the chaos, Nasser Musa's MiG engaged in a fierce battle with an enemy plane, ending in a triumphant victory. As the final 8 planes from Mansura took off, Israeli planes came close for their bombing mission. Nasser Musa, flying one of the MiG-21s, saw an Israeli Phantom aiming at him. Quickly, Musa turned sharply to the right, getting behind the Phantom and shooting it down with cannon fire. Medhat Arafa, another Egyptian pilot, vividly remembers how intense the battle was, with lots of planes in the sky. They fought in dogfights while also warning other pilots of incoming dangers. The Israeli Phantoms had to drop their bombs to maneuver against the faster MiGs. Egyptian pilots had to land quickly, get new supplies, refuel, and take off again, all in just 7 minutes. Even though it usually takes 3 minutes to take off, Nasser noticed that the pilots did it in just 1.5 minutes during the air battle. As the clock moved towards 15:52, the danger increased. A third wave of attacks approached, a never-ending flood threatening to overpower them. From Inshaz Air Base, 8 more MiGs flew into the sky, while those on the ground rushed to reload and fuel. Above the village of Dekernis, a big fight happened, a clash of giants that would be remembered in history. But just when it seemed like they might lose, a bit of hope appeared. The enemy, beaten and wounded, retreated quickly. Realizing their mistake, they ran away, leaving the Egyptian skies strangely quiet again. At 16:08, as the last Israeli plane disappeared, the defenders breathed a tired sigh of relief. They had won the battle, but at what cost? Number 4. Doitt Raid. In the history of flying battles, one mission stands out big time: the Doitt Raid. This super brave mission changed World War II. On April 18, 1942, Colonel James Doolittle, a real hero, leads a bold attack right into enemy territory. It was the very first time American planes struck deep inside Japan. Now, let's rewind a bit. After the awful Pearl Harbor attack, America cooks up a gutsy plan. The goal was to hit back hard, showing off skill and guts. On the deck of the USS Hornet, 16 bomber planes called B-25B Mitchells are lined up, showing America's smarts and determination. Each plane is loaded with powerful bombs, ready to cause chaos in Japan. But it's not just bombs they're carrying, it's a strong message. We won't back down, and we'll make you pay. With engines roaring and their hearts pounding, these brave pilots take off, ready to make history and prove their bravery. With a mighty roar, the airplanes soared up, leaving the safety of their home base behind. Their mission wasn't just any ordinary task. It was a risky move, like a high-stakes game. It could either boost the confidence of the two countries fighting for the top spot or bring them to their knees. As they flew closer to their target, things got tense. The enemy put up a fierce fight, but the pilots stayed strong and kept going, despite the danger all around them. When they reached Tokyo, they unleashed their firepower, hitting military and industrial spots hard. The damage might not have looked huge, but it shook Japan to its core. Back home, in the United States, it lit a spark of hope. But for Japan, it was a scary wake-up call. But the journey wasn't over. Heading back, they faced a new problem: running out of fuel and time. Some had to crash land or jump out over enemy land. It was a terrifying situation, testing their bravery and resilience like never before. But amid all the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Some managed to find safety in other countries, escaping the worst. Even though their planes were wrecked, their courage remained unbroken, a true example of human bravery in tough times. Number 5. St. Mah Air Battle. In 1918, America was determined to show its strength in the skies and on the ground. Back then, people didn't think much of the American Army. They said they were still learning and didn't have the best gear like the Europeans. But General Pershing had big plans. He wanted to change how people saw the American soldiers. So he gathered up over 500,000 troops, loads of big guns, and tons of planes for a huge attack at a place called St. Mah. One of the key players in this plan was Brigadier General Mitchell. At first, even the British weren't sure about him, but he managed to convince them to join in, and together they gathered an amazing 1,400 planes, a force like no one had ever seen before. Mitchell had a bold idea. He wanted to hit the enemy hard from the sky. His plan was to use all those planes to bomb and shoot at the German soldiers until they couldn't fight back anymore. It was risky, but it could change the game entirely. On the big day, the battlefield was alive with loud booms and the sound of engines roaring like angry giants. American soldiers were getting ready to charge into battle, and the sky turned into a wild scene of chaos and anger. Planes flew low, battling through fog and rain, hitting the enemy with deadly accuracy. One brave pilot, Frank Luke Jr., became a hero by taking down a big enemy balloon. Other American pilots hunted down German planes with fierce determination. The German soldiers were caught off guard and outnumbered as wave after wave of American planes ruled the sky without fear. As the fight went on, General Mitchell's planes caused chaos for the retreating German troops. The roads were full of soldiers running away and supplies left behind. Perfect targets for American bombers and attack planes. The enemy was desperate, trying to survive as American pilots kept hitting them hard. By the end of the day, the skies over St. Mah saw the victory of American air power. Even the German commander, General von Gallwitz, had to admit that the American pilots had made September 12th a dark day for him. After the battle, people couldn't stop talking about Mitchell's bold tactics. The St. Mah offensive not only brought a big win, but also showed that America was a force to be reckoned with in the world of air warfare. Number 6. Battle of Midway. In 1942, there was a big fight called the Battle of Midway. It was super important in World War II. Before this, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor and fought the Battle of the Coral Sea. The United States Navy, led by Admirals Chester Nimitz, Frank Jack Fletcher, and Raymond A. Spruance, fought against the Japanese Navy near Midway Atoll. This fight changed everything in the war. A history expert named John Keegan said it was the most amazing and important fight ever in naval history. The Japanese wanted to make America weaker in the Pacific. They hoped to control more land in Asia. They planned to trick American ships and take over Midway Island. This would help them defend their territory and conquer more places. However, the Japanese plan had big problems. The Americans found out about their plan because they broke secret codes. so they were ready for the attack and fought back. Back in early 1942, American secret codebreakers were reading Japanese messages that hinted at a big move at a place called AF, later figured out to be Midway Island. Commander Joseph Rockfort and his team at Station Hypo were like secret agents, giving Admiral Nimitz really important info and helping the American side a lot. They knew exactly where the Japanese ships were going and where they were weak, which was a big advantage. When the battle started, it was clear that the Americans were ready and in good positions, while the Japanese didn't know much about what they were up against. The first attack by the Japanese on Midway Island didn't work out as they planned. The American defenses were strong, and even though things were chaotic, they held up well. Meanwhile, the American response was well thought out and set things up for a big showdown. In the middle of all the fighting, American planes swooped down on the Japanese ships with precision, causing a lot of damage. Within minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were on fire, showing that things were turning in favor of the Americans. Even though the Japanese tried hard to fight back with one of their carriers, Hiryu, it was clear that things were going badly for them. They had to give up on their plan and let Midway go to the Americans. After the battle, Japan was in big trouble. They lost a lot of ships and skilled people, which made it harder for them to keep fighting in the Pacific. So in simple terms, the Battle of Midway was a big win for the Americans and a big loss for Japan, changing how the war went in the Pacific. Number 7. The Doitt Raid. At the crack of dawn on August 19, 1942, a group of daring planes called Bostons set out on a brave mission. Covered by the soft light of early morning, they flew towards German coastal artillery, aiming to surprise them. Even though their actions were hidden by the darkness, they didn't give up. A bigger team of 14 Bostons then flew towards Dieppe. Their goal was clear: to surround the German guns with a thick cloud of smoke. Despite facing lots of enemy fire, they dropped many smoke bombs, flying smoothly through the stormy skies. At the same time, another group of bombers called Bristol Blenheim swooped in. They dropped bombs near the German flak sites, causing chaos. The sky echoed with the sounds of battle, and some of the Bostons got damaged or even caught fire when they landed. But the brave pilots kept going. As the morning went on, a peaceful airfield called Abbeville-Drucotte was suddenly filled with noise. 24 powerful planes called Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses, escorted by brave USAAF Spitfire 9s, attacked the airfield. They caused so much damage that the airfield couldn't operate for 2 important hours. But the break didn't last long. A group of planes called Typhoons pretended to attack Ostend, distracting the enemy. Meanwhile, Mustangs searched the area for any signs of enemy reinforcements, keeping a sharp lookout. Even though the brave RAF pilots were far from home, they faced strong attacks from German fighters. These enemy planes relentlessly attacked the air cover protecting the ground and sea forces. Some of our Spitfire planes were pushed to their limits, struggling to stay in the air for even a short time. But as the German attacks grew stronger, more British and Canadian squadrons rushed in to help. 6 squadrons, including planes as good as the fearsome FW-190, joined the fight. They flew over the besieged town of Dieppe, carrying out an amazing 2,500 missions. However, things got messy. The plans for coordinating the defense fell apart under the heavy German attacks. The flow of information became chaotic, making it hard for the headquarters to keep up. Important details were lost, which could have changed the outcome of the battle. But even in the confusion, the air cover stayed strong. It stopped the Germans from causing too much harm to our forces. Above Dieppe, bravery clashed with tough times, shaping history with every movement. Number 8. Operation Meeting House. On the night of March 9, 1945, a big group of planes flew over Tokyo. They weren't there to say hello. They were there to drop bombs. These bombs weren't like the ones you might see in movies. They were special bombs designed to cause big fires. As the planes got closer to Tokyo, they dropped their bombs. The bombs weren't just falling randomly. They were aimed at buildings and streets. When they hit the ground, they exploded and started huge fires. Imagine a city on fire, with smoke filling the air and chaos everywhere. The first round of bombing was terrifying. Buildings went up in flames, and the city looked like it was marked by a burning X. But that was just the start. The bombing continued for hours, making the fires bigger and spreading destruction all over. By the time it was over, Tokyo was in ruins. Nearly 16 square miles of the city were destroyed, and about 100,000 people lost their lives. It was a terrible toll of war, leaving behind an almost unrecognizable city. But even in the face of all this destruction, the planes kept coming. They were determined to finish their mission, despite the dangers below. However, as the night went on, the Japanese defenses fought back fiercely, and 27 brave airmen lost their lives in the battle. The big bombing in Tokyo during World War II was the deadliest ever. It was worse than the big bombings in Dresden and Hamburg, and even the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This bombing showed how terrible modern war can be. The bombing didn't just hurt people right then and there. It destroyed a lot of the factories in Tokyo, which meant they couldn't make things anymore. This made it really hard for the city to keep going. Lots of people lost their homes or worse because of the bombing. Neighborhoods that used to be busy and happy were now destroyed and quiet, except for the sound of fires burning. After the bombing, the Emperor of Japan went to see how bad things were in Tokyo. Seeing all the destruction made him realize that fighting back wasn't going to work anymore. This led to Japan giving up 6 months later. The bombing showed everyone how awful war is. It's not just about buildings getting destroyed, but also about people losing their lives and their futures being ruined. Number 9. Air Battle over Nice. On a chilly morning in 1944, a brave group of American pilots called the 82nd Fighter Group got ready for a very important mission. Their job was to attack German trucks and trains in a rocky area between two towns, Szenica and Mitrovica. Their leader, Colonel Clarence T. Curly Edwinson, was very experienced. Flying in their P-38 Lightnings, the pilots from the 95th, 96th, and 97th Fighter Squadrons were determined. When the first group of planes swooped down, they destroyed a German train, but sadly, Captain Charles King's plane was shot down by enemy fire. Luckily, some local people near Szenica bravely saved him. As the American planes continued their mission, something unexpected happened. Another group of pilots, the 17th Air Army led by General Vladimir Sudets, mistook the American planes for German ones. They thought they were enemies, so they sent their planes to attack. In all the confusion, both sides weren't sure who was who anymore. The American pilots had to quickly change their plans and fly higher to protect themselves. The situation was getting scarier by the minute, with both sides not knowing what to do next. Just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, a new group of Soviet planes joined the fight. Led by Captain Alexander Kuldanov, they clashed with the American pilots above the city of Nice. The noise of the battle echoed through the streets below. For 15 nerve-wracking minutes, the skies over Nice turned into a fierce battleground. Loyalties got mixed up, and staying alive became more important than who you were loyal to. Up there, where planes clashed, even friendships made on the ground didn't matter anymore. Every pilot was fighting for themselves, driven by the basic need to survive in the chaos of war. After the aerial fight, things didn't just go back to normal. Lives were lost, friendships strained, and the feeling of conflict hung heavy in the air. It was a harsh reminder of how dangerous war can be, with its unpredictable nature lurking like a shadow over everything. Number 10. Atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In August 1945, in the last part of World War II, something bad happened. It's one of those moments we can't forget. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These bombs changed how wars work, and they're a really sad part of our history. Now, let us rewind a bit. One morning in August, the Enola Gay took off from an island called Tinian. It was carrying something very dangerous. Where was it going? Hiroshima. a busy city in Japan. As the Enola Gay flew through the sky, the crew knew they were going to cause a lot of damage. They were about to drop something terrible on people who didn't expect it. But they probably didn't realize just how awful it would be. When they got to Hiroshima, they let go of their terrible cargo, a bomb called Little Boy. It was the first time a bomb like this had ever been used in a real war. When it exploded, it was like the sky lit up with a super bright light, followed by a really loud boom. The explosion destroyed almost everything it touched, including homes and many, many people. After the bomb went off, Hiroshima looked like something from a scary story. Whole neighborhoods were destroyed, and everything was covered in rubble and ash. People who survived were hurt badly by burns and something called radiation sickness. The city, once full of life, was now a sad reminder of how powerful and dangerous human-made weapons can be. Just 3 days later, on August 9, 1945, the Enola Gay flew again. This time headed for Nagasaki. The crew felt nervous as they got closer to their target, knowing the huge destruction their bomb would cause. The bomb, called Fat Man, sped toward Nagasaki, and the people there prepared for the worst. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the sky, followed by a loud boom that shook everything. These bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki changed history, reminding us of how terrible war can be and the awful results of not stopping aggression. The Enola Gay, once just a plane's name, became a symbol of unimaginable destruction. Which of these attacks do you think was the most destructive? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to watch the recommended video on your screen right now.